The KR-THAC alliance prided itself on technological and military superiority. For centuries, they have been the undisputed masters of their corner of the galaxy, having conquered or subjugated dozens of lesser species. Their fleet was the sword and shield of an empire spanning hundreds of star systems, and the heavy cruiser KR-THAC's might was one of its finest examples. Captain Kalenvar stood on the command bridge, hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the holographic displays surrounding him. His craggy features remained impassive, but a sense of restlessness emanated from his rigid posture. After 20 cycles of distinguished service, he found patrol duty beneath him, even in a region as mysterious as the unexplored border Zone 17. Status report, he commanded, voice resonating across the bridge. His executive officer, a broad-shouldered KR-THAC named Drav, approached with a crisp salute. All systems nominal, Captain. Long-range sensors continue to detect unusual energy fluctuations, but the source remains unidentified. Likely just cosmic background radiation from the nearby nebula. Var nodded, unconvinced. Maintain vigilance. The High Command doesn't dispatch heavy cruisers to monitor cosmic radiation. The bridge crew, a mix of KR-THAC officers and representatives from subjugated races, continued their duties in disciplined silence. The hierarchy was clear. KR-THAC commanded, others obeyed. It was the natural order of things, enforced by millennia of military doctrine that preached strength as the ultimate truth. Among the subordinate officers, Science Officer Lyra stood out with her slender frame and reflective silver skin, characteristic of the Xylar species. Her species had been among the first to recognize KR-THAC's superiority and submit voluntarily, earning them positions of relative privilege, though never equality. She monitored her station with exceptional focus, her six-fingered hands moving with practiced precision across the sensor interfaces. "Captain," she called suddenly, her melodic voice cutting through the low hum of the bridge. "Long-range sensors are detecting an anomaly." Var turned sharply. "Specify." "Single object, approaching from deep space. High velocity, now decelerating rapidly." Her large, pupilless eyes narrowed as she processed the incoming data. "It's maintaining position just outside our effective weapons range." Drav snorted. "Asteroid with an unusual trajectory?" "Negative," Lyra replied, not bothering to hide her irritation at the dismissal. "Structure is clearly artificial. Metallic composition unlike anything in our database. Energy signatures are significant but heavily shielded. No identification beacon activated." Var strode to her station, examining the readings himself. "Initiate Level 2 alert protocols. Power weapons systems to standby." The bridge erupted into controlled activity as the alert klaxons sounded throughout the massive vessel. Lyra remained focused on her console, but a slight tremor passed through her slender fingers. "Captain," she said quietly, "there's something else. Something unusual about this vessel." Var glanced down at her. "Explain." "I can't precisely. It's—" She hesitated, knowing how KR-THAC officers viewed Xylar intuition. "It feels deliberate, calculated. There's an awareness there that I haven't sensed from other unknown vessels before." Var's expression hardened. KR-THAC doctrine had little patience for intuition, but he had served with Lyra long enough to know her instincts often prove valuable. "Noted. Continue monitoring." He returned to the command chair as the tactical officer reported weapon systems ready. "Send standard identification request on all common frequencies," Var ordered. "If they don't respond within regulation time, they will be considered hostile." The communications officer complied, broadcasting the message in standard KR-THAC language, including the automatic translation protocols. The bridge fell silent as they awaited a response. None came. 60 seconds elapsed, "Captain," the communications officer reported. No response on any channel. Var's mandibles tightened, the KR-THAC equivalent of a frown. "Prepare warning." "Captain," Lyra interrupted, her voice uncharacteristically urgent. "The vessel is scanning us." A narrow beam of energy, nearly invisible to their sensors, swept across the Karathax might in a precise pattern. Intrusive, scan detected, confirmed the security officer. They're probing our defense systems. Var's patience ended. In Karathax doctrine, such an act was equivalent to a declaration of hostile intent. Fire warning shot. Low-power laser array, quarter-kilometer off their bow. The tactical officer hesitated only briefly. Firing. The Karathax might shuddered slightly as the laser batteries discharged, sending a brilliant beam of energy toward the unknown vessel. What happened next left the bridge crew momentarily speechless. The beam appeared to strike some form of energy barrier, creating ripples of distortion that dissipated the laser energy completely. The unknown vessel remained untouched. Impossible, muttered Draft. Our sensors didn't detect any shield activation. Before Var could issue new orders, the communications officer jumped in his seat. Captain, we're receiving a transmission. Audio only, translated through our systems. Let's hear it, Var commanded. A mechanical yet distinctly alive voice filled the bridge. Greetings, Karathax Alliance. This is UNS Vigilance. We claim this sector under the Seoul Confederacy Accords. Withdraw immediately. Silence fell over the bridge. Var looked to his intelligence officer. Uns, Seoul Confederacy? Are these terms in our database? The intelligence officer, a senior Karathax named Morton, shook his head. Negative, Captain. No records of either designation in our galactic archives. The voice mentioned human, Lyra observed. I believe that may be their species designation. Var's patience had reached its limit. The audacity of this unknown vessel to issue demands to a Karathax heavy cruiser was beyond insulting. Tactical, full weapons complement. Target their propulsion systems and weapons arrays. Fire when ready. Captain, Lyra began, perhaps we should. Fire, Var commanded. The Karathax might unleashed its formidable arsenal. Plasma torpedoes streaked through space alongside brilliant beams of focused ion energy, all converging on the position of the UNS Vigilance. What followed defied Karathax military doctrine and experience. The human vessel moved with startling agility, executing maneuvers that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Its acceleration curves and directional changes outpaced the targeting systems of the Karathax cruiser, causing many of the weapons to miss entirely. Those that found their mark encountered that same mysterious energy field, which either absorbed or deflected the incoming fire with apparent ease. Impossible, Drav whispered, his confidence shaken for the first time. Nothing can maneuver like that. Nothing should be able to withstand direct hits from our primary batteries. Var gripped the arms of his command chair. Recalibrate targeting algorithms. Continuous fire pattern alpha. Before the order could be fully implemented, the UNS Vigilance launched its counterattack. Rather than energy weapons or torpedoes, dozens of small objects erupted from concealed bays along the human vessel's hull. They moved with blinding speed, their trajectories erratic yet precise. Unknown projectiles approaching, shouted the tactical officer. Attempting to intercept, the Karathax point defense systems activated, filling space with a web of energy beams, but the human drones were too fast, too nimble. They penetrated the defensive screen and struck the Karathax might with surgical precision. The bridge rocked violently as explosions rippled across the cruiser's hull. Status displays flashed red as systems began failing throughout the ship. Main gun batteries 2 through 7 disabled, reported the tactical officer, disbelief evident in his voice. Secondary propulsion offline. Hull breaches on decks 5 through 9. Emergency containment holding. Var rose from his chair, rage and disbelief warring within him. Redirect power to remaining weapons. Target there. The bridge lights flickered and died, replaced moments later by the dull red glow of emergency lighting. Most of the control consoles went dark. Electromagnetic pulse, Lyra announced, her station one of the few still functioning due to its isolated power supply. Non-lethal, but highly effective. Most electronic systems temporarily disabled. Backup systems, Var demanded, coming online, but slowly, replied the engineering officer. Whatever they hit us with, it was specifically calibrated to our technology. This wasn't a standard EMP weapon. As the bridge crew struggled to restore basic functionality, the communications system crackled to life on its own. A voice, different from the mechanical one before, more human and distinctly female, filled the command center. Commander Var, this is your final opportunity to cease hostilities and surrender your vessel for inspection. Further resistance will be met with disabling force. The voice was cold, confident, and carried an authority that cut through the chaos of the bridge. More unsettling was the fact that they knew his name and rank. Var stood rigid, facing the most impossible decision of his career. K-Arthak doctrine was clear. Surrender was dishonor, and dishonor was worse than death. Yet his ship was crippled, his weapons largely disabled, and he had a responsibility to his crew. Captain, Lyra approached, speaking softly so only he could hear. I don't believe they intend to destroy us. Their attacks have been precise, calculated to disable rather than annihilate. If they wanted us dead, we would be already. Var knew she was right, which only made the situation more humiliating. This unknown species, these humans, had not only defeated a K-Arthak heavy cruiser, but had done so with such overwhelming superiority that they could choose to incapacitate rather than destroy. The communications officer looked to Var, awaiting orders. The entire bridge held its breath. After an agonizing internal struggle, Var made his decision. Send signal. We cease hostilities. The words felt like acid in his throat. Request adherence to galactic conventions regarding treatment of surrendered crews. The message was transmitted. Moments later, the reply came, acknowledged. Prepare to receive boarding party in your main hangar bay. Disarm your honor guard. Any weapons detected will result in immediate response. Var turned to Drav. Assemble the reception team. Ceremonial uniforms only, no weapons. As his executive officer departed to carry out the orders, Var addressed the remaining bridge crew. I have made this decision to preserve your lives and this vessel. The responsibility and dishonor are mine alone. No one spoke, but the relief on the non-K-Arthak faces was evident. Even among his own kind, Var sensed more acceptance than condemnation. The mythology of K-Arthak invincibility had been shattered today, and with it, perhaps some of their rigid adherence to an unyielding doctrine. 30 minutes later, Var stood in the main hangar bay with his honor guard, 5 senior officers, including Lyra, whose insights he now valued more than ever. They watched as a small, angular shuttle detached from the UNS Vigilance and approached the cruiser's bay. The shuttle landed with precision, its engines powering down with a diminishing whine. A moment of tense silence followed before a hatch opened, extending a ramp to the deck. 5 figures emerged, clad in form-fitting armor that appeared lightweight, yet extraordinarily sophisticated. Their helmets retracted, revealing beings that looked surprisingly K-Arthak-like in basic structure, bipedal, symmetrical, with forward-facing eyes, yet alien in their details. Soft skin instead of plates, hair instead of sensory ridges, expressive faces with subtle musculature. Leading them was a female with short red hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to evaluate everything instantly. She stopped a meter from Var, standing with a confidence that belied her smaller stature. Captain Kalen Var, she said, her voice matching the one from the transmission. I am Captain Eva Rostova of the United Nations Ship Vigilance, Seoul Confederacy Navy. She gestured to the towering figure beside her, a bipedal machine with humanoid features but clearly artificial. This is my tactical advisor, Atlas. Var maintained his dignity despite the circumstances. You have us at a disadvantage, Captain Rostova. Your species is unknown to the K-Arthak Alliance. A small, cold smile crossed Rostova's face. Not by accident, Captain. Humanity has been aware of the K-Arthak Alliance for quite some time. We've maintained a policy of silent observation while developing our own sphere of influence in a different quadrant of the galaxy. This revelation sent a chill through Var. The implications were staggering. You've been watching us? For how long? Long enough, Rostova replied. Our stealth observation vessels have documented Kar-Thak expansion patterns, military capabilities, and governance structures for over 50 of your cycles. Lyra stepped forward slightly. Captain Rostova, your vessel's capabilities are unprecedented in our experience. May I ask if the Vigilance represents the pinnacle of human military technology? The mechanical being, Atlas, spoke for the first time, its voice surprisingly natural. The UNS Vigilance is a mid-range escort vessel, approximately equivalent to your designation of light cruiser. It represents standard deployment technology for border patrol operations. The Kar-Thak officers exchanged glances of disbelief. If this was merely a light cruiser, what might their capital ships be capable of? Rostova continued. I'll be direct, Captain Var. My orders are to secure this region as a security buffer zone for human space. The Sol Confederacy has authorized me to negotiate preliminary terms with you as the ranking Kar-Thak representative present, pending formal diplomatic contact with your high command. Var straightened his posture, struggling to maintain composure in the face of this fundamental shift in his understanding of galactic power. I'm not authorized to negotiate on behalf of the Alliance. Of course not, Rostova agreed. But you can facilitate communication. We require access to your ship's data core to verify our intelligence on Kar-Thak territorial claims and forward our diplomatic request to your high command. That would be a violation of, Var began. It wasn't a request, Rostova interrupted, her tone hardening. Your ship is disabled, Captain. We could take what we need by force, but I'm offering you the courtesy of cooperation. Var looked to his officers, seeing in their expressions a mix of outrage and resignation. Finally, he turned to Lyra, whose subtle nod confirmed what he already knew. They had no choice. Very well, he conceded. Officer Lyra will escort your technical team to the data core, but I insist on Kar-Thak supervision during all access procedures. Acceptable, Rostova nodded. She signaled to two of her team members, who stepped forward with compact equipment cases. My specialists will work with Officer Lyra. The rest of us will remain here until the process is complete. As Lyra departed with the human technicians, an uncomfortable silence fell over the hangar bay. Var found himself studying these humans more closely, noting their efficient movements, the subtle communications between them, the way they positioned themselves strategically despite appearing relaxed. Your species, Var said finally, has achieved remarkable technological advancement while remaining undetected. Rostova regarded him with calculated openness. Necessity, Captain. Humanity nearly destroyed itself before reaching the stars. That experience taught us caution, to observe before engaging, to prepare thoroughly, and never to reveal our full capabilities unnecessarily. And yet you reveal yourselves now, Var observed. Why? The human captain's expression remained neutral. Changing circumstances. The Kar-Thak expansion pattern has accelerated in recent years, approaching regions we consider vital to our security. Silent observation is no longer viable. The implications hung in the air between them. The Kar-Thak alliance had unwittingly been provoking a sleeping giant, expanding toward the territory of species whose power they hadn't even imagined existed. 3 hours later, Lyra returned with the human technicians. One of them nodded to Rostova, who then addressed Var. The data transfer is complete. We've transmitted our diplomatic credentials and formal contact requests to your high command. I expect they'll be motivated to respond quickly. Var had no doubt of that. The sensor data alone from their brief engagement would send shockwaves through Kar-Thak military leadership. What happens now, Captain Rostova? Now we wait, she replied. My orders are to secure your cooperation and escort the Kar-Thak's might to a neutral location for the initial diplomatic meeting. Your engineers will be permitted to make essential repairs under our supervision. And if I refuse? Var asked, already knowing the answer. Rostova's smile didn't reach her eyes. Then the Vigilance will tow your disabled vessel instead. I imagine that would be considerably more damaging to both your ship and your pride. Pride. It had always been the cornerstone of Kar-Thak military doctrine. Now it felt hollow in the face of such overwhelming technological disparity. Var nodded once, sharply. We will cooperate. The response from KR-THAC High Command came faster than anyone anticipated, just 14 hours after the human transmission. The message was brief. A diplomatic delegation would rendezvous with them at the coordinates provided by the humans, an ancient space station in a truly neutral system, abandoned by its creators millennia ago, but maintained as a meeting ground for various species. Var was not surprised to find himself named as part of the KR-THAC delegation. He had experienced human capabilities firsthand, making his insights invaluable despite the shame of defeat. His inclusion was practical, if not entirely honorable by traditional standards. As the KR-THACs might limped toward the rendezvous point under the watchful escort of the UNS Vigilance, Var spent hours reviewing the information the humans had permitted him to access about their civilization. What he found both impressed and disturbed him. The Sol Confederacy encompassed over 300 star systems in a region of space the KR-THAC had barely explored, having expanded in the opposite direction. Their technological development had followed a completely different evolutionary path than the KR-THACs, focusing on efficiency and adaptability rather than raw power. Most intriguing was their apparent diversity. Dozens of internal factions united under a single banner when facing outward, despite historical conflicts among themselves. Fascinating species, Lyra commented, reviewing the data alongside him in his private quarters. They evolve on a high-gravity world with extreme climate variation. Their physiology reflects adaptation to constant change. Var nodded, studying an image of Earth, the human homeworld. Their military doctrine is equally adaptive. No fixed patterns, no rigid hierarchies of engagement. Everything situational, contextual. He shook his head. The antithesis of KR-THAC approach. Perhaps that's why they defeated us so easily, Lyra suggested. Carefully, they anticipated our responses because we follow predictable doctrines. The observation stung, but Var couldn't deny its truth. The High Command will resist this perspective. They'll claim it was superior technology, not superior thinking. Lyra's silver skin shimmered as she tilted her head. And what do you believe, Captain? Var was silent for a long moment. I believe the KR-THAC alliance faces its greatest challenge since unification. Not merely a technological rival, but a conceptual one. These humans think differently. 3 days later, they arrived at the ancient space station, a massive ring structure with spires extending inward like the spokes of a wheel. The KR-THAC delegation had transferred to a diplomatic vessel that arrived from the nearest Alliance outpost, while the KR-THACs might remain under human supervision some distance away. The diplomatic vessel docked alongside 3 others, one being a sleek, gunmetal gray human ship significantly larger than the shuttle they had seen before. The 4th vessel belonged to the Arbiters, an ancient, neutral species that specialized in facilitating difficult negotiations. Var stood uncomfortably in his formal military attire, part of a 7-member KR-THAC delegation led by High Emissary Thorn, a veteran diplomat known for his unyielding defense of Alliance interests. The emissary had barely acknowledged Var since his arrival, making the captain's disgrace abundantly clear. They proceeded through the station's ornate corridors, passing integrated gravity zones and atmosphere barriers that allowed multiple species to commingle without environmental suits. The Arbiters' tall, translucent beings with multiple appendages guided them to the central chamber. The human delegation was already present, standing in relaxed yet alert postures around their side of a circular table. Var immediately recognized Captain Rostova among them, but their leader appeared to be a distinguished older human female with steel-gray hair and the bearing of a seasoned commander. High Emissary Thorn, one of the Arbiters announced in the common trade language, representing the KR-THAC alliance. Then, turning to the humans, Admiral Lee, representing the Sol Confederacy. The human admiral stepped forward, her movements precise and economical. Emissary Thorn, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I am Admiral May Lee, commander of the Sol Confederacy's 5th Exploration Fleet. Thorne's mandibles clicked in the K-Arthak gesture of formal acknowledgement. The K-Arthak Alliance attends this meeting under protest. The unprovoked attack on our vessel and the coerced presence of our delegation violates all standards of interstellar conduct. VAR winced internally at this approach. Bluster might impress subordinate species, but these humans had already demonstrated their superiority. Judging by the slight raise of Admiral Lee's eyebrow, she found the posturing exactly as ineffective as VAR feared. I understand perspective is important, emissary, Lee replied smoothly. From our viewpoint, the K-Arthak vessel fired first upon a ship maintaining position outside weapons range. The sensor logs from both vessels have been provided to the arbiters for verification. One of the arbiters confirmed this with a gentle wave of appendages. The records have been analyzed. The human account appears factually accurate. Thorne's posture stiffened further. The K-Arthak Alliance does not recognize the authority of any unregistered species to claim territory already charted by our explorers. Then perhaps we should clarify the territorial situation, Admiral Lee suggested, activating a holographic display in the center of the table. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy materialized, with colored regions indicating various territorial claims. Lee manipulated the display, expanding a section that VAR recognized as the unexplored border zone. This region, which you designate as Zone 17, falls within the security perimeter established by the Sol Confederacy 50 standard years ago. Our claim predates K-Arthak exploration by nearly a decade. Preposterous, Thorne snapped. No such claim was ever registered with the K-Arthak Alliance or any known galactic authority. Because we chose not to announce ourselves prematurely, Lee explained patiently. However, we did register our territorial markers with the repository of the arbiters, as is standard practice for civilizations wishing to maintain a period of isolated development. All eyes turned to the arbiters, who confirmed with a harmonic resonance from their central communication organ. The Sol Confederacy registered its expansion zones in accordance with Section 7 of the Ancient Protocols for Emerging Civilizations. VAR watched Thorne's confidence waver. The Arbiter's repository was indeed recognized even by the K-Arthak as a neutral record keeper, though they rarely bothered to consult it before expanding into unclaimed territory. Furthermore, Admiral Lee continued, we have documented 47 instances of K-Arthak vessels entering regions clearly marked with our boundary buoys over the past 20 years. These buoys broadcast warning signals on all standard frequencies, including those used by K-Arthak navigation systems. She gestured to Captain Rostova, who stepped forward with a data crystal. The full record of incursions, along with the specifications of our boundary markers, is contained here. We've also included evidence that K-Arthak scout vessels recovered and analyzed one of our buoys 6 years ago, confirming your leadership was aware of an unknown presence in the region. That revelation sent a ripple of discomfort through the K-Arthak delegation. If true, it meant the High Command had deliberately expanded toward a potential rival rather than exercising caution. Thorne struggled to maintain composure. Even if such markers existed, the K-Arthak Alliance recognizes no claim without direct diplomatic contact. A convenient policy when expanding in a territory already claimed by species unable to defend themselves, Rostova observed coolly. The negotiations deteriorated from there. For hours, the K-Arthak delegation attempted various diplomatic maneuvers, demanding evidence, questioning jurisdictions, invoking ancient precedents, while the humans methodically dismantled each argument with carefully prepared documentation and the occasional subtle reminder of their demonstrated military superiority. VAR remained silent throughout, observing the humans' techniques with growing respect. They never threatened explicitly, yet the implication of force remained present in every courteous explanation of their security requirements and non-negotiable parameters. By the session's end, the terms were clear: a recognition of Sol Confederacy sovereignty over designated regions, including Zone 17, establishment of a demilitarized buffer zone spanning 20 light-years, cessation of K-Arthak expansion toward human space, in an exchange of ambassadors to prevent future misunderstandings. The KR-THAC would maintain their current territories, but would be required to acknowledge human authority in disputed regions. It was, by KR-THAC standards, a humiliating capitulation, yet one that avoided a potentially catastrophic war with a technologically superior adversary. As the formal proceedings concluded and the delegations prepared to depart, Admiral Lee approached Var directly. "Captain Var," she said, extending her hand in what he recognized from the human cultural briefing as a greeting gesture. "Captain Rostova speaks highly of your professionalism during a difficult encounter." Var hesitated before carefully taking her hand, as he had seen others do. Captain Rostova conducted herself with unexpected restraint. She could have destroyed my vessel, but chose not to. Linudda. Contrary to what your leadership might believe, the Seoul Confederacy has no interest in conquest or unnecessary conflict. We simply protect what's ours. A philosophy the KR-THAC will need time to understand, Var admitted. Our doctrine has always equated expansion with security. Perhaps this will be an opportunity for a reevaluation, Lee suggested. The treaty includes provisions for cultural and scientific exchange. Your High Command has approved your assignment as the first KR-THAC military attaché to our border station Delta 9. Var's surprise must have been evident, for Lee continued. You've experienced human capabilities firsthand, yet maintained your composure and made rational decisions under extreme pressure. Those qualities are valuable for someone in a liaison position. The assignment was clearly both an opportunity and an exile, a way for the KR-THAC leadership to distance themselves from the officer who had surrendered while still utilizing his experience. It's something about the prospect intrigued Var in a way he hadn't expected. "I will serve where assigned," he said formally. "Excellent," Lee replied. "You'll be working directly with Captain Rostova. The Vigilance will be Delta 9's security coordinator for the next standard year." Later, as Var stood in the observation lounge of the KR-THAC diplomatic vessel, watching the human ships prepare for departure, Lyra joined him silently. "You've been assigned to the human station," she stated rather than asked. Var nodded. "And you?" "I've requested a transfer to accompany you," she said. "A science liaison." The High Command approved with surprising speed. Eager to have another set of eyes observing human technology, Var concluded. "Undoubtedly, though I suspect they'll be disappointed by how little the humans reveal willingly." She paused, her silver skin reflecting the starlight. "What do you think will happen now, Captain?" Var watched as the UNS Vigilance executed a perfect departure maneuver, its hull gleaming in the light of the distant sun. "Everything changes," he said simply. "The KR-THAC have defined themselves as the dominant power for so long that this shock will ripple through every level of our society. Some will demand rearmament and war. Others will push for accelerated technological development to match human capabilities." "And you?" Lyra asked. "I intend to understand them," Var replied, surprising himself with the realization. These humans defeated us not just with superior technology, but with superior understanding. They knew how we would react, what we would do. We knew nothing of them. He turned to face her. That asymmetry of knowledge is more dangerous than any weapon. 3 weeks later, a small KR-THAC shuttle approached the human border station Delta 9, a sprawling complex of interconnected modules and docking arms orbiting a barren moon. Captain Kalen Var stood at the viewport, his sparse personal belongings packed in a single container. Beside him, Lyra monitored the approach vector provided by the station's traffic control. "They're guiding us to Docking Base 7, she reported. "Standard diplomatic protocols." Var nodded, his gaze fixed on the approaching station. Somewhere within that structure waited Captain Eva Rostova, in a future that no KR-THAC could have imagined a month ago. He felt a complex mixture of emotions. Lingering bitterness over his defeat, professional respect for his adversary's capabilities, and a reluctant curiosity about what might lie ahead. The official conflict between humans and KR-THAC had ended with the signing of treaties and the drawing of new borders on star charts. But a different kind of struggle was just beginning, one of ideas, cultures, and competing visions for the galaxy's future. The Kaarthak philosophy of strength as truth would now be tested against human adaptability and innovation. As the shuttle docked with a gentle shudder, Var straightened his uniform and prepared to disembark. Whatever awaited him on the station, he was determined to approach it as he would any military challenge, with discipline, observation, and the flexibility to adapt when circumstances demanded it. The airlock cycled open. In the receiving area stood Captain Rostova, flanked by her mechanical advisor Atlas and several human officers. Her expression was professional but not unwelcoming. "Captain Var," she said, offering the hand gesture of greeting. "Welcome to Delta 9. We have much work ahead of us." Var returned the gesture, feeling the weight of history in this simple exchange between former enemies. "Indeed we do, Captain Rostova. Indeed we do." The galaxy had irrevocably changed, and Kalen Var, once a proud Kaarthak commander, now found himself at the vanguard of that transformation, a reluctant bridge between two powers whose collision would reshape the stars themselves.